Okay, good morning, everybody. We know your time is very valuable, so please thank you for showing up today. Basically, this is about new municipal capital projects. So this is the list that gets ranked annually. And so welcome. Let's go ahead and get started. Next slide. So I'm Brian Koleka. I work for the Broward MPO, and I am your liaison. And we also have team managers here, Todd and Alicia and Rodney, and they are all here to work. You'll see them from time to time as we progress through this new round of ranking to assist you with anything that you need. So that way we can get some high quality projects that are eligible to be ranked this year. And our goal is to actually have 100% of the projects that have been submitted this year to be ranked. So that means that they're going to be ready, have all the necessary information, as well as be fully eligible for surtax funds. Next slide. So this is the agenda. We've designed it to be in two different parts. The first part is an overview of the process and what to expect and whose responsibility is who is responsible for this part and who is responsible for the next part. This is all explained to you in the first part, and the idea behind that was go ahead and get an overview of this program, and then if you are not the responsible team member for submitting the new project into our portal this year, you can actually take that second hour and continue your work as necessary. We have a small break if it's permitting, and then finally, the last hour is actually going to be on how to submit it, what kind of projects to submit, and the requirements for each project in order to have it progress into the eligibility review and then submitted to be ranking. So last year, some projects were submitted that weren't ranked. Those were ineligible. And so this year, our goal is to be 100% eligible. So every project that you submit will be ranked. And that's the second hour. Next slide. So this is how we designed it. When you registered for this webinar, we gave you a brief survey and we asked you, like, what questions do you have? And so if you get a survey like that in the future, know that we are actually listening. So you can see a list right here of all the things that were mentioned as something that you'd like to be educated on. And we formatted this entire webinar to answer those questions that you submitted to us. So we will cover each and every one that was submitted at one point or another during the first or second half of this training. So we are listening. When you get a seminar survey, that's how we built this. And if you come up with a question that you didn't put in the survey and you have one later, you will be demonstrated on how to go to our webpage and sign up for a help session and tell us what kind of help you need so we can meet your needs. And we have a 24-hour turnaround period as our goal for whenever you submit and request for help. Next slide. And Todd, I will hand it over to you so you can introduce your team.
Excellent. All right, can everybody hear me okay? Can you hear me, Brian?
Yes, sir.
All right, great. Thank you for the opportunity, and we are very excited about this. Obviously, many of you were part of our Cycle 1 training, where we went over the Cycle 1 project, what was happening with that. And you're actually going to see with this team, we're responsible for both sides of it. So there's the ranking of the new MCPs, and then the recommendation of the Cycle 1, and I'll go into more details related to that. And as Brian said, with this team, we're working very hard to create a mutual feedback loop between all of us. So that way we're hearing your questions, we're getting what your challenges are, your successes, and that way we're able to share those for everyone. So that way we're learning through this process and improving it as we go along. And this is the team that you'll primarily be working with. So my name is Todd Brower. I head up the recommendation side of it. Mr. Wade White heads up our ranking. So he was unable to join us today, so I'll be doing his slides today. On the other side, you see our support team that's there for you. So Kat, who is also here joining us, and she was a big part of the Cycle 1, all things Cycle 1 training. She and Rodney will be doing another set of training as we progress through here, again, with a constant feedback loop with all of you. but she's the one that will be working primarily with you with your new MCP applications. And then she's involved also in the review. So many of you have already worked with her on the cycle 1 reviews and the recommendation process. The same will be true for the new MCPs application process. But she's not alone in the effort. We also have Maria, who some of you have already met via email, because she's the one that handles our scheduling. So anytime that a request comes in, as Brian said, we focus on a 24-hour turnaround. It goes to Maria as well as several other team members. They will reach out to you, and she basically makes sure that all of our schedules, she knows Brian, mine, and everybody on the team schedule to make sure that we can get things, meetings set up very quickly to be able to address any of your needs. And the nice thing is we're getting started early in this process. So that way we're not rushing anything. So that's why you're seeing us. We had a meeting back in December as well as today. We want to make sure that before the application period opens up, that you're given plenty of time to meet with us and learn with the process. So Maria is going to be a big part of that. And then supporting Kat is Amy Vargas and Dale Largy. And Dale is a CPA. He focuses primarily on the financial side. So if there's some questions about if there's matching funds, and he also does the reviews as it relates to if you're identifying matching funds, he helps make sure that we're verifying what plan it's in, where the funds are, and then their uses as well. And then Amy primarily focuses on compliance. So she manages a lot of our checklists and other work like that. So this is your team, and this is the team that you'll be working with over the next 4 years. So as Brian has mentioned in other meetings, the Second Amendment goes out to the 2025 cycle. And so this is the group we've been brought on board to support Brian in this effort. And so there's going to be some consistency in the work that you see done here. So our phone numbers are there. Everybody's phone number goes directly to their cell phone if there's an issue that comes up. So you're sure to get a hold of us. So that is the team that you'll be working with primarily on the new MCP process. There we go. So, all right, so getting it into the new MCP. So this is Brian, and I will be answering your questions and giving you the brief overview of this information. So the first place that I want to start, though, is really the objectives for this 2022 application period. So back in October, Brian, myself, Wade, met with Gretchen and Angela to talk about the 2021 cycle, what things were working, what do we need to do better, how do we improve? Because that's the thing that I really want to drive home with this process is we're always looking to improve. And frankly, you all have been giving us great feedback right away since we've started this process, and what are things that can be used to help you. And so we did that in October. We'll probably be doing that after each cycle ends, which is typically in June, getting together as a team and figuring out how do we improve things with a focus then on objectives for that next year. The one thing that we learned right away from last year's process is that there needed to be a robust communication infrastructure. And it's not just a communication infrastructure, but also one that could document all of the interactions that have occurred throughout the process. That can help you and your commission see, these are all the times that I've met with the MPO and their staff. This is how we've submitted information. So that way you've got a collected monitoring system to be able to go in and say, okay, this is all the things that we've done, plus an immediate one-on-one interaction with us. So we can immediately take on challenges and problems, as well as share your success stories. So that was the first place that we started, is a robust communication infrastructure. And on the second half of this meeting today, training session, Alicia Gonzalez will be taking you through the new infrastructure, including the new website that allows you to contact us and set up the meetings that I was talking about related with Maria. So you have a direct connection to our team and us getting you what you need. The second item is the Cycle 1 NCP support. So you'll see later on in this presentation that Cycle 1s are the priority per the Second Amendment. And so we really want to focus on making sure that those projects get done and they get moving. And if they're not ready to go, or if there's been other challenges or priorities have changed, being able to work with you if you want to remove those projects so we can move on to the new MCPs. So that becomes our major focus, is getting those Cycle 1 projects through according to the Second Amendment. It could be up to 2027 before we see additional funding coming up within the MAG for those projects. But things happen rapidly and quickly. So we're hoping that we can actually get to those much sooner. So that gives us time to work on new MCPs. And that's really about cleaning up the current database that we have. Now, as Brian had mentioned to you, the last cycle, we had about 43 projects that had gone through a review process, an eligibility review, and a ranking process. We want to make sure that those projects are tightened up if there's any questions related to that. So that way there's no concern about eligibility and moving the projects forward. So we're actually going to be showcasing in the second half of this meeting the new infrastructure that we've developed for the portal. It will have your projects as part of there, the 43 projects that you had submitted last time. And then we're really looking forward to meeting with you one-on-one, which we've already done with a few cities, and starting to set up your program for this year. So not just going through your cycle 1 projects, but also getting you ready for new MCPs, being able to review information so that way the application period goes smoothly. So that is our objectives for this particular year. A robust communication infrastructure, which we put in place, and any ideas and suggestions that you have for that is always welcome. As you know, through the registration, we'd ask you questions about the new website, changes that you'd like to see, things that would help you out. And we've already started to respond to those, including adding the ability to add meetings via Outlook. So we're being as responsive as we can and quickly as we can to make sure that your needs are met. Then focusing on those cycle 1 projects, because there's still a lot of those that need to go through the system, through the recommendation system, and then funded and move forward so we can really focus on the new MCP. So we've got some time to tweak and really adjust and make that new MCP process as strong as we can. So that way, when the county is ready to fund those and we can move forward with them, we can do that very quickly. So those are the objectives for this particular year. So I want to quickly go over a little bit about the role of the MPO and what are the objectives from Broward County perspective to what the MPO has been assigned to do. And so that all fits within the scope, though, of teaching, training, and support. So we're here to not just support Broward County, but also to support you and to work towards being that bridge to make sure that everything's going smoothly. And if there's challenges that arise, that we can work together to get through those. So that is really the umbrella in which we work under, is that teaching, training, and support, which then leads us into the main role of the MPO, which there are 2 of them per the Second Amendment, and that's to rank projects. Now with cycle 1, those are already ranked projects. That ranking stays the same. But for new MCPs, it's our job then to rank those. So that means the application process, helping with the reviews, making sure that everything is going smoothly, and then ranking those after that period closes. Again, I'm going to get into more specifics about when the application process opens and when it closes and what that process looks like. Then the second avenue that the MPO is assigned per the Second Amendment is recommending. And that's recommending the readiness of a project, meaning that it's ready to be considered for the 5-year plan, that we have worked with you to identify either the documents that the checklist needs or the time frame in which you'll have those documents available. Now, you'll note that I highlight very quickly that cycle 1 MCPs are the priority, and then the new MCPs are secondary. So our main focus is working with you on those cycle 1 projects and getting those through. And again, the estimates for how much money is available is given by the Florida Department of Revenue. And that all then working together gives us an idea of what projects could we recommend each year to move forward. Last year, we had about $19 million that was recommended with 6 total projects. A couple of the projects had actually already been assigned and had multiple years that was broken into from the funding standpoint. So of course that comes off right off the top, but there was multiple projects that we moved up to project 76. So again, we have 110 cycle 1 projects, or up to 110 labeled, and we were able to recommend up to 76. So we still have some work to do on the cycle 1s, but that shouldn't distract us though from making sure that we're getting the best new MCPs as possible. So there is the opportunity per the Second Amendment though, that upon the request of the county administrator, if they want to fund above the MAG, that we could also do those reviews. So that is a possibility, but again, the priority is that cycle 1 process. So to really highlight it is, again, even though we're teaching, training, and supporting it, we're doing it all in the standard that the MPO's role in this process is to rank and recommend. That is the lane in which we're working under. Now, to give a better sense of what does that mean relative to the program, that role is within the MAG. So the minimum annual guarantee, which is 10% of the overall transportation surtax, that funds for municipal benefits, community shuttle service, municipal capital projects, municipal rehab and maintenance MCPs, as well as a project contingency fund for projects that have gone over what the intended value was. And again, sometimes that relates to inflation and making sure that they're filling that gap. I'm highlighting municipal capital projects because that is the only one of those four that the MPO has a role in. So when we come to the rank and recommendation side of that, that's relative to MCPs only. So that is our process. And to give you a sense of what we accomplished last year, there was about $19 million of cycle one MCPs that were recommended from the MCP to go into the 5-year plan. And they were presented to the oversight board and then the commission. So the process is absolutely working as it had been intended per the Second Amendment, that we were able to see those projects go forward. And I really commend everybody that we worked with last year to make sure that they'd given us everything that we need. So that gives you an overall basis of what is the role of the MPO. So it's within the MAG, but it's really 1/4 of that, which is the MCPs. Now, that being said, though, as you've heard me say, there's teaching and training and support. So if there are areas, though, and questions outside of that that you would like us to relay to the county or the county to you all, that's the bridge that we're working towards. So even though we may not have ownership over it, the lane is the MCPs. There's opportunity, though, for us to be able to work with you if you've got challenges or want to share a success story that we can do that to the full group. Because again, we have these meetings regularly from training on applications as well as doing the readiness reviews. So we have a lot of opportunity where we can work with you on that. As it relates to then the difference between cycle one and the new MCPs. So cycle one is that original 110 MCPs. So that ranking doesn't change for the Second Amendment. They stay in order of the highest rank and they move through the process that way. The new MCPs, I like to see this as a bucket. And so I've been mentioning on some of our one-on-one meetings that I'd really prefer not for you to think of cycle two, cycle three, or cycle four, but more of just new MCPs for that year. So in 2021, we had 43 new MCPs that was part of that process. Now, it means, though, it's kind of like a classroom where you have a classroom and you may be the first ranked person in that project or the third ranked person within that classroom. But if you get a new student that got transferred, then it can change the rankings of all of the students there. This also holds true. So new NPCs actually change yearly based on what you submit. So for those that I've already met with, that Brian, Kat, and myself have met with, we obviously encourage those that have already projects that have been deemed eligible, that were ranked last time, that you resubmit it. So it's part of the 2022, but it's an ever-changing bucket. So it won't be a cycle two, cycle three. It will really be, here are the new MCPs and the rank as it relates to that year. And Rodney, through the second half of this presentation, is going to be showing you the database. We've been putting all of those projects back in there. So that way you've got that at your disposal. So that's a little bit about the difference between the two. Again, cycle one becomes our absolute priority as it comes to recommendation. We don't do the ranking of those. We do the ranking on the new MCPs. So in the cycle one MCPs, I think what's important to really note here is, again, they are the priority. So per the Second Amendment, that is the direction that we need to do. And that's where we're working with the county to do the readiness review. So again, at the one-on-one meetings that we've already had with several of you, that's something that we've emphasized. Obviously, there's some information on the cycle one progression that's on the Broward County website. And for a little bit of the benefits of the importance of that, I did a quick analysis this weekend. So now the website, the data is as of November 2021. So again, a little dated. We're obviously in January 2022. But I took all of the information that was published on the website. And the exciting part about this is you're seeing massive progress as it relates to the cycle one project. So that's why I wanted to bring this up, is you'll see of the total value of all the projects, the funding, 40% of it has been executed in the projects underway, and that represents 23 total projects. Of the 27 projects that are in progress, meaning the ILA is in process, that's 36% of the total dollars. So you're seeing a big portion of that money starting to move. 34 total projects that represent about 24% of the overall funding hasn't been started. Obviously, once those that are in progress gets moving, they become then the next priority. So the emphasis that I want to have here is that Cycle 1 projects are moving quickly. So we definitely, why that relates to the new MCPs and why it's important for you to have been involved in this is because we want to make sure, as Brian said right from the beginning, that we've got good new MCPs, that they've gone through plenty of vetting, evaluation, and that they'll be ready to go. So when the county says, hey, new MCPs, we're ready to roll, we're able to say, hey, we've got this great list, they're ready to go, they've been vetted, they've been ranked, we're ready to start that process. So that's why I wanted to show you this information, because things are moving quickly. And that is the exciting part about the process, is it is definitely happening. So with the new MCPs, these are the things that I really want you to take note of, is that the annual application period has to begin per the Second Amendment by April 1st. So what we've decided on by policy, and you'll see this later on in the presentation as well, is that the second Friday in March is when we'll open up the application period, and it'll be open for 28 days. That being said, though, is once we complete the maintenance of the database, the new MCP portal, you will have access to your database at any time. So you can update your projects. If you've got more information about them, you can do that 24/7, 365. Now, again, when we're under maintenance, which we are now, you won't have access to it, but at any time that when you log in, many of you are getting your new passwords already. You'll be able to get in there and start updating your applications prior to that submittal period. So again, by statute or by the Second Amendment, we must start by April 1st. We're going to start the second Friday in March to get a little bit ahead of the game in a 28-day period. Now, we must be done with all of our evaluation and our ranking by June 1st. So to be able to hit to that next oversight board, our job then is, once we get your applications, that's why we say, do not wait till the last day. Start your applications early, get them in there, give us opportunity to review them, make sure that they're complete, because we have to have all of those projects ranked that are deemed eligible. And I'll take you through the process through a flow chart here in a second. But we've got to have all of our work done by June 1st. So the sooner you get your stuff in, the better that we can do. We've also published all of our MPO policies and procedures. So we have not only a flow chart for you to look at, so you see the step-by-step guidance, as well as a reference as to where that's found in the Second Amendment. And then also all of our written steps that we go through. So you can see where Brian's involved, where I'm involved, where the county administrator is involved, the map administrator, Broward County Legal. We have all of that laid out, so that way you can understand what your responsibilities are, as well as everybody else's through this process. So that is on the website. All right. And as we go to the next one, there we go. Okay, so thank you for your patience. So this is the overall process when it comes to ranking the new MCPs. So I like to divide this up kind of in three elements. We got the identification standpoint, which is working with you to identify your projects and make sure that everything is together for you to move your projects forward. Then we've got the ranking process, which also includes an eligibility review. And I should say an initial eligibility review. And in the legend, you see which each piece is done by who. So when you look at it in the legend, the box is about a process, the diamond's a decision, the trapezoid is then the data, if there's data to be provided, and then the document itself. And then whatever color it is denotes who is responsible for that portion. So you'll see the MPO is responsible for opening the annual application period, and it has the section of the Second Amendment that guides that process. So section 2A is if there's questions where you need to go. If it says policy defined, you will find on the website the policy related to each one of those. So as we go through that process of identification, you've got the opening of the application period. For those that already have a database that's complete or mostly complete, you have your then new MCP application that you're going to be submitting or at least developing. We review that for completeness to make sure that you're going through the process, that everything is available, including resolutions of support, cost estimates, project descriptions, phasing, all of that information. So if you go along here, it's like a decision tree. We have a decision, is it a complete application? If it's a yes, then it can move on to the initial eligibility review. If it's a no, then the question comes in, is the period open? If it is, we can request you for more information. If the period is closed, if you waited till the last day, which we had a few people that did that, waited till 3 p.m. to start submitting their applications. If there was a problem with the application, we didn't have enough time to actually go back and review it. So that's why I say, please start early. And we definitely are encouraging you, please make sure you set up your one-on-ones with us, which Alicia will explain that process for you as we go along. But then the ranking process is once we get all of your applications completed, we've double checked it. Broward County Legal does their initial eligibility review to make sure that everything is there. They've got a decision if it's eligible. That then gets denoted to us, and then we can start our ranking process, which then we developed a list of ranked new MCPs that must be turned in to the map administrator by June 1st. That then will be going to the oversight board for the final review, as well as then their determination, which then gives us our ending of the list of ranked eligible new MCPs. So that's the entire process as a whole. So I'm going to go into a little bit of the specifics of each one. So for the identification standpoint, as I mentioned to you, the portal is actually open 24/7, except under maintenance. We're doing some maintenance now because we want to make sure that we've got a process that tightens up and aligns with what the requirements are for project eligibility, as well as any kind of other review that needs to occur. So that has been open. We actually shut it down. We did a news article on it. So for those that sign up, you'll get news reports via your email to let you know when things have opened up and as we can progress. But again, the second Friday in March, we'll open up the process, which means the database has a submit button. It will become activated and you can start submitting your applications. And that will last for 28 days. Again, we ask that you please get a one-on-one meeting with us so we can support you through the process. We will walk you through the application process. We'll log in with you. We'll help you through the process so that way we can make sure we're getting new MCPs that are ready to go and ready to move and can be ranked. Now, we've had a few changes to that portion though. So when you're looking at the application, we've got to change the application as it relates to addressing eligibility. So instead of just having a drop down for work type, we're now going to do some specific elements that allows you to give a little bit more information so we can vet these projects more closely, as well as be able to share that information with Broward County Legal so they can basically ensure that you're getting a project, moving a project forward that isn't going to run into any challenges, eligibility requirements down the road. So we're going to have first an element, and again, Rodney is going to take you through this, but I wanted you to see it as a whole when it comes to the ranking, that you'll have the roadway improvements. You'll have, you'll select one, is it a new roadway or bridge? Is it widening an existing roadway or bridge, or a traffic calming improvement, which can relate to any kind of operations. So that could be a bulb out, that could be a roundabout, that could be anything that helps with traffic calming improvements. And I put the statutes there, so if there's any questions about what the transportation surtax project eligibility requirements are, those are the statutes to reference. But that doesn't mean that that's where it ends. There's also other elements of your project that are still eligible for surtax funding. ADA accommodations, bike lanes, drainage, fiber optics, guardrails, landscaping, sidewalks, signage, sound walls, and street lighting. Now, I starred anything though that might have a funding restriction or requirement relative to that. So like drainage, it must be drainage related to the road, not a development. Landscaping can't be overly decorative. Signage the same way. Sound walls require a report based on FDOT's reporting requirements in the Green Book, and street lighting. So each one of those, and I referenced section 3 of the Second Amendment, there are some funding restrictions that you need to be aware of, but it allows you to basically select all of those as part of your project. So we're going to have a lot more in-depth information about your project to be able to make sure that the review goes smoothly. So once we've identified those projects and you're seeing that we've got some changes relative to the application and the process itself, we've now divided it into 3 steps. So that way you're getting constant interaction from us and our team. Then we have the ranking process. I've got here the sheet. It's also published within the Second Amendment. It's the Exhibit B, but it's also on our website. There's the process that was developed for the 2020 process, which is how projects are ranked. So you look at everything from employment density around the project, population density, transit service around it, incidents, equity, all of those elements come into play. So we have a very robust process that is included within the ranking process that was developed earlier. And I think many of you had worked with Andrew and Carrie and that team to get that moving forward. So as part of that ranking process, there are a couple of things though that I do want to note that I think are important of this process for you to be aware of. So according to the Second Amendment, it's very clear that we also have to get that approval, that process. If there's any tweaks or adjustments, we get that approved and we present to the county administrator every year for that process there. It looks like we're getting some, so we're going to start getting some questions. Please definitely put those in the chat. We'll be answering those as we finish the presentation. So we're going to definitely go through each one of those as I wrap up. So we're going to have plenty of time for that. And if we have to move into 3 o'clock, that's not a big deal. So there's that element of the approval process. And then over time, though, there are some things that could impact your scoring of your new MCPs that I want you to be aware of, because there's updates to these databases all the time. Population, employment, transit service, incidences, environmental justice, all of these databases that this process used can be updated, which can impact how your project is ranked. So just need you to be aware of that, as well as graphical distributions of project. That's something that is recommended that we look at for the Second Amendment, as well as the adoption of land use policies that Broward County has put in to encourage affordable housing. That is also something that will get addressed as we move on. So the ranking process will have adjustments. It will stay pretty tight with what it is now, but we will definitely be always aware of new data and new processes that need to be part of that effort. Then on the reporting side, basically once we give that initial list of ranked projects, that then goes to the map administrator, who then presents that to the oversight board. They then make a determination of the eligibility for the new MCP. So that recommendation, if anything comes out, then we update that list of new ranked eligible new MCPs. And we basically include a map and then a brief summary of those projects themselves. So it gives you an idea of what the final product looks like. So with that, I think we've got, okay, good. We've got 15 minutes for question and answers. So Brian and the team are available now to answer your questions. So Manny, I have to go into the chat, I believe, to do that.
There's a Q&A section at the very bottom next to the chat. So it has participants, and then right next to it is Q&A.
Okay, let me find that. Oh, I'm going to need my readers. Okay, so where do I go, Brian?
So there's a Q&A, and it should have like a red number 1, and that will open up the question and answer box. And there's
there we go. I got it. Good.
Good. Question from Miramar.
All right. So the question is, for applications that are resubmittals of projects submitted last year, we have to modify the drop-down menu information shown in slide 17. Yes, that's correct. And that's one of the reasons why we want to meet with you. Now, we did, though, as part of our process doing the due diligence, I do want you to be aware that we actually gave a recommendation for that. So I've already gone through all the project descriptions, and I've identified what I think are all the elements relative to your project based on the descriptions that you provided last year. So when Rodney shows you the database of your projects, that's one of the reasons why it's still under maintenance. You'll see what our translation of that was, and that will be available to you. So again, you can make changes to it at any time and then submit that process or changes to that process at any time. So that's how we're going to manage that. But trying to give you a head start, I actually went through each one of those projects and updated it and changed the database accordingly. Okay, other questions that you all have? Now, I know I couldn't have done that good of a job, so I'm going to just assume people are typing. So we'll give it a little bit of time here. Well, if there are no other questions now, again, when we start the second half of this, and we're going to start it at 3, so we're still going to take a little bit of a break here. And the reason why we're doing that is we had several people that weren't as interested as the first part of it as they were the second part. So we gave them time to notions. That's going to be a feature moving forward that you're going to see a lot from us, is that we like to divide things out, because for some of you, we'd already met one-on-one. Some of us have already gone through some of this information before. So we try to divide things out. Like I said, I'm sort of shocked that we've accomplished this, and all before 2:45. Oh, no, good. We did see another one. Will the slides be posted on the MCP website? Yes, they will. And so the slides from cycle 1 are there now. And then we will also be including a video of the presentations for both all things cycle 1 and this. So in the future, you'll find, so definitely these slides will be going up. If I know Kat, she'll be uploading these before the day is done, but it'll be either this evening or tomorrow morning. They'll be available, and you will also get your video of that as well. And we'll do that for all the training sessions. And what's important to note too, relative to this, is we'll do it by year. So you'll notice that in each one of the documents that we upload onto the website, we're going to start denoting them by the year. So this year is obviously 2022. We had last year, 2021, 2023, and so forth. So that way, if there's been any adjustments, you can go to that year to kind of see how things have evolved as well. Okay, all right, next question. Are we able to find out why projects we submitted in March 2021 were deemed not eligible? Yes, and actually during the one-on-ones, we've already had those conversations. We've met with Miramar as an example, and a few other cities. We sit down with you and we go through each one of them. Angela and her team gives us the portion of the Second Amendment and any other notes to be aware of. And that's exactly why we want to meet with you, is because in some cases, it's because the project description was lacking, so we need to improve that. Now, again, I'm going to note, we've got a little bit of time before likely funding will be available for new MCPs, but this gives us that opportunity to go through each one of those applications with you and get them ready. So if you don't make it this year, it's okay. Obviously, we want to make sure that you're in there before 2023, because again, the rate that we're going, we're going to try to get this moving as quickly as we can. So the short answer is absolutely. We will sit down with you, go through all the comments, and then help you see if there's something that was missing in the project description. Any other questions?
Until we get our next question, I'll take this opportunity to let you know if you would like to email me once you have had your one-on-one. I do have the passwords that are unique for your municipality. Earlier this afternoon, I gave out the first password. So feel free, once you've had your one-on-one, email me and I will email you your password.
And I will tell you, the one-on-ones have been incredibly helpful. And I want to thank everybody that's been a part of those so far, because like I said, we go through cycle 1, we go through new MCPs, but everybody's had a lot of really great ideas to help improve what the MPO is doing and how we can help out. And it's just invaluable. So thank you so much for that. And we're really looking forward to meeting with those that we haven't yet. So with that, seeing no other questions, so we'll be on break until 3 o'clock. So get yourself a cup of coffee, have a bio, I guess they're calling it bio breaks now. I'm trying to get up with the times, Brian. So take your bio breaks and, oh, no, we got one more question. So projects submitted and ranked in cycle 2 have to be resubmitted. Yeah, so the important thing though is they're still in your database. So when you log into your database, your project will still be there. And so if everything is fine with that project, all that will need to happen is on the second Friday in March, that submit button will activate and you just hit submit. So the good news is there's not any movement that you really have to make if you want to resubmit. The reason why we're doing that is because we're finding that there are some projects that have either lost project support or some of the priorities have changed. So that's why it's allowing that. But we're building a system that allows you that once you've gone through your process, you've had it evaluated, it's been looked at for project eligibility, you can easily resubmit that project. How can we schedule one-on-ones? Excellent. That's going to be the second half of the training. So you can do that directly from the website. So we have a interactive portion of the site that tells you how can we help. That gets sent to the team members, and that activates Maria and her team in getting things moving right along. And then you get a record of that through email too. So that way you see our 24-hour turnaround time and how we're putting things together. The other neat thing about the website is that we upload all of those events, and you can also search it to see what events have happened in the past, what do you have scheduled in the future. So you've got a full record of that. Next question, what's the average time going back and forth with the county and submitting all the required documents? Usually pretty quick. What I will say is that I do believe, based on the new 3-step process that we have in the application, we should be able to do the turnaround fairly quickly. I know from 2021, working with Angela and her team when they did the initial review, that took a little less than a week. So it was pretty efficient. And I think through this process, it's going to become even more efficient. So that's what we're working towards. So yeah, sort of expect, once you get your initial first step in, some of the big things that we're really working on too is making sure that there's a preliminary review that occurs before you start going to your commissions for resolutions of support. Because one of the things that we've learned from the last process is nobody wants to go to a commission, get a resolution of support for a project that's not eligible for surtax funding. So we've adjusted that process to make sure that you're getting a review before that even occurs. And I do believe we can get that done within a week's time. And again, everything gets documented, and you actually get a report on your portal about everything that's in review or needing to be reviewed and how many days it's been since you've submitted. So there's going to be some really cool monitoring things that we're doing to help you all out.
And if there is a deficiency of any type, we basically go in the order that they are submitted. So there's a timestamp when you submit a project. And so we review it before we even send it over for initial legal eligibility. And we will, like last year, you know, the first project that we saw that had a problem, we were able to actually reach out and say, hey, it's missing this one little element that's going to make it ineligible to be ranked. And they fixed it right away. Everybody we reached out to, they always gave us a very quick turnaround time. But when you had, you know, 80% of the projects coming in on the very last day of the open portal, it was truly overwhelming to get to everyone. And so some of them fell deficient and were not ranked. So the moral of the story is submit it early, because we can guarantee you that you will have all the elements necessary to go to legal review and then to be ranked.
And I'll tell you, it's for the most part, I think we've been able to get all the one-on-one scheduled within about a week of that initial communication. Because we also are trying to be aware of your calendar as well. So that's why Maria makes sure that we get times that work for you as well as our team. But we get those one-on-ones turned around within about a week. So we'd had 7 already of them. Okay, so we're at 2:45. Last call for questions with this piece. And again, you're going to have another opportunity for questions as we move on to the next section. And again, so we're going to take a 15-minute break, get a cup of coffee, get a water, whatever, check email, and then we'll be back on starting at 3 o'clock.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Okay, we will be getting started. So I'm going to turn it over to my esteemed colleague, Alicia Gonzalez. She's going to, now she's allowed me to drive the bus, so please have some patience, because I'm going to do my best, Alicia, to navigate to the screens that you want me to.
Yes.
So I will sign off here, and let me now turn to this. So give me 1 second. I'll mute
And
myself.
Brian, I was just going to ask, since we may have some new people that joined us that weren't on earlier, if you wanted to just do a quick hello. I know you just turned off your camera so I could start, but I wasn't sure if there's people on that weren't on before.
No, that's a good point. And looking at the number, that could be the case. So welcome everybody to the new MCP application training. So as part of this process, what we'll be doing is Alicia Gonzalez will be providing you an overview of the new communication infrastructure that we've developed, which is a direct link to the portal that Rodney is going to be giving you a demonstration on. So I'll leave it at that and turn it over to Alicia.
Thank you so much and good afternoon, everybody. First and foremost, I'm hoping, I obviously, if we were in person, I'd ask for a show of hands, but I am hoping that you have been at least to our website. And the reason that that's important, and you should be seeing that now on your screen, my-mcps.org. So mymcps.org. Tried to make it as easy as possible. We really, if you look at what our tagline is there as your intro, it basically says, welcome to your one-stop shop for ranking and recommending municipal capital projects, which of course is the role of the Broward MPO and this part of the surtax program. So first and foremost, we want you to understand that that's exactly what this website is. This is scheduled to be and is becoming, as what I'm told, is being very well received. So let us know what issues you have always, and real time would be great because we can't edit everything there real time. Is really meant to be your 24/7 information portal. So it should be the first and last place you go every time you work on something related to your applications. It should also be a place that you can search any term, any items that you're concerned about, and then also a way to figure out what is going on next as far as where we are in the process. So with that, I'll move us to the next slide. The key features of this website, in order to be able to be that 24/7 information center for you, is all of our educational materials are there. And yes, they're being edited real time. So if anything changes in our process, or if anything changes in what we're seeing coming out of our meetings, more confusion or concerns about a particular area, that's when we update more and more our materials. Now, our procedures and policies, that pretty much stays the same, but obviously it's something that is there as well. We have the portal to your specific municipal account, to your applications, which we'll talk about a little bit more in the next slide. And then we have all the updates to all of your previous submissions, as Todd said in the earlier session. For those of you that weren't there, anything that you have done up to now is there. We have lost no data, or so we pray, but everything is there. We just decided to not just revamp the site, but really tailor it to all the concerns and questions that you all were having. And then it's also a great place for us to be constantly communicating with you all. So in our next slide, we went ahead and wrote this up for you, just again, based on what we're doing, but we're actually going to show you now a little bit of what that site looks like. I will say that the comments that you guys are giving us, even when you registered, you were sending us comments about the website. Someone actually brought to our attention the need for putting these meetings in the Outlook calendars, not just Google. We did that right away. So anything you submit to us, we're going to look at right away. And so, as I mentioned before, this is your homepage, and you'll see right away in your homepage that you make a decision right here, right? So first, am I here to go through and learn and see the latest information and find out what is existing? Am I here to clarify? And yes, I made my planners and engineers really dumb this down for all of us because I wanted to better understand it as well. You're going to see your upcoming events, your news, and then this how we can help. Okay. And this how we can help is literally everything that we can think of that you might need help with, again, in an effort to get back to you real time. But if we go back up to the top, Todd, I think you come into this site really in two ways. One is, am I going to learn more, or am I going straight to my portal? And real quick, we keep talking about this portal. Yes, your next steps, which we'll talk about later, but is going to be through this how you can help that you just saw. You're going to have an opportunity to schedule your one-on-ones with the team, go through every question we have, And then you're going to get a password, as Brian mentioned. After you've had that meeting, you're going to get a password from Brian to go into this portal. As Todd is showing you there, there's several different things that we want you to really focus on, and check as many of these boxes as you need to when you submit that. Even if you're just doing your one-on-one, any other things you submit are really helpful to us. Todd, I do want to show real quick where we have the section on elected official versus municipal staff. So this part of the website is something that was really, really important to us. And that was really just to show that what is your role in the application process. So elected officials, your elected officials, Broward MPO members, they go to this page and they will read throughout this entire page. What are the things that they can do to be part of the process to help you move your process forward? And then of course, their direct contact, which is Brian, as well as some frequently asked questions that we've been getting. And you'll see that page grow as we get more and more questions, so we can help more people along the way. But if you come in, as you mostly are on this call, as municipal staff, you're going to see something different, right? Because your role obviously is key in a different way. So that's another area of this, that if you get approached by any of your elected officials or you have new staff coming in, people can understand that we catered that for, what are you doing as a municipal staff, and then what is your elected official doing, and you can see it there. There's also one last area that I think is important, and Todd, I'll let you jump in if you think I'm missing anything, and that's the terms and definitions, which again, we basically tried to take every term that we take for granted today and put it in this section. And also, what does it mean in this process, right? Some of these words mean different things in other processes, but this is what they mean in this particular process. So having said that, I'm not sure, Todd, if I missed anything as far as a little bit of a tour of our site. I do want to thank all of you that are giving us feedback, because we are hearing that it is working and working well. But, this is your site. So the more that you give us feedback and help us put that information there, the better.
The only thing that I'd add, Alicia, is that there is this opportunity to subscribe
yes.
to news and events. So if you're not on the list, which I believe most of you looking at the attendee list are, excuse me. Yeah, I was going to do the same thing. I need a drink. This allows you, so every week you get updates on new news that gets published, as well as events. So you'll see different news articles. It gives you information about what's happening with the database, the new website, as we get more training materials, as well as then updates to documents. So as we'd had that question about the documents, we do the education. You see the presentations are put up there. All of these documents are searchable, as you were saying. So that's the only thing that I would add.
No, that's great. And that's really important, Todd, going back to, not only are the news and events important for many reasons, but that document portal is important, because if there's any document that we think you need to have, or that you're requesting that we put up, that's where it's going to live.
Yep. Exactly. So I think if Rodney is ready at this point, I turn it over to him. Rodney is going to be providing you an overview of the new MCP portal. Now, again, currently it's under maintenance, because we're moving all of your data there. We're double checking it, make sure that it's all good. So as you start getting your password, there will be a news announcement when the portal is open for you, and that way all of your information is there. So Rodney, I'm gonna let you share your screen at this point.
Okay.
And then I will sign off both video and audio.
Todd, I would also just mention that the new MCPs portal button is up on the right-hand side of the website, and that's how you access the MCP database.
Okay, you've got two places on the home page, and then this always stays there as you move forward. Yep, excellent. Okay. There you go. I'm now out, and let me just mute and.
Okay, You see my screen. Okay, great. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you again for attending the training. I want to start with just the very beginning aspect of this, which is being able to just access the MCP database. With your one-on-one reviews, you'll be given a login, and that login is good for each municipality. So essentially there is one user per municipality. And so that login is good for anyone that you want to share that within the municipality itself. So what we're going to do is log into one of our municipalities, and you can see you have a drop-down list of all of municipalities within Broward. And we're going to look at Cooper City, and we're just going to enter the password for Cooper City and log in. So what you see is our new 2022 interface for MCP application submission. And existing from our 2021 round are 3 projects that were actually created in 2021 that have been rolled over into 2022. And that what we have is data that most of the data that, as Todd mentioned, that was in 2021 is able to be moved over, but there are a few new data items that we'll be requesting from you that are more a change in our process and the change of the data requirements for different steps in the process. So what we're doing is we're kind of starting at step 1. So there are 3 steps within the MCP application process for 2022. Number 1 is a preliminary eligibility step, which allows you to just enter some general information for the project and submit that for review so that an initial pre-screening can be done of your project that you want to submit for 2022, and that it doesn't go in further in the process without receiving just an initial gaze on it from Broward County Legal to determine if it's eligible at all to begin with. And then you go to step 2, which is more of a commitment process where we're looking at are there other right-of-ways that you're looking at outside of your jurisdiction that might be involved in the project, and do you have commitment from those jurisdictions outside of yours that you can perform the work there? Plus, we have a resolution of support that from the governing body that we are asking for as well. And then final step is completeness. So that is where we're looking at the project phases, getting information about funding requests for surtax, the overall project scope. Do you have other funding sources? Do you have consultants on board to do the work? And then the duration of the phase and when it's set to begin. So we'll be asking similar questions that we did in 2021 with a few caveats and changes based on the new process. So this new interface is set up to support that overall process and get you very quickly to the point where you can submit your project when the submission time comes. So I would just refer you to the initial 3 projects here from 2021. And what we can do is just kind of marry up the 2020 review steps here to this column for new MCP application review steps. So 1 is preliminary eligibility, 2 is commitment, 3 is completeness. And each one of them will require information from you. And what's happening is in the color code key that you're provided in the bottom is that green means that that step is completed. Red means that it was completed, but the approval was denied. So green means that it was approved. Red means that it was denied. And then blue is for where you need to, you as a municipality need to input information to continue the process. So that's an action step for you to continue that process. And then yellow is not available. So if we hover over any of the buttons that are yellow, we won't be able to click on them because we're not at that step yet. So that's not available to you. And then importantly, if there's a review in progress, meaning a Broward County or Broward MPO or the review team is actually reviewing the data you've submitted, then it won't be available to you at that point either. So let's go to our first project, our step 1, preliminary eligibility approved. And if you notice that when you hover over any of these buttons, it will give you some instruction as to how to continue in the process. So we'll click step 1, preliminary review. Now, we noted that this was already completed in terms of the initial eligibility review as of last year. So we carried that over, and a lot of the information from last year is already pre-populated inside of this. Now, when your one-on-one meetings happen, we may need to ask you a few additional questions to fill this in completely, given there are some discrepancies from last year, but we'll do that during that time. But you can see most of the information has come over, including your project name, the work type. This is where a little bit of that interpretation that Todd mentioned earlier from our project work types from last year to this year. So that's another item that will need a little more clarification on some projects. We do ask you to select additional transportation related improvements, and this is a new question for 2022. You provide a brief description of the project. Does it have defined start and end points, and the phases that your request surtax funding, and a point of contact. Now, this point of contact is very important because whenever the emails go out, whenever we're submitting for review and the reviews are completed, the person in this email will be receiving those messages. So just be aware that, just make sure that you filled this out and that this is the person that you want to have receiving those emails. And then finally, there is a review. And so once this particular step has been reviewed by Broward County Legal, and it was determined to have full eligibility, and whatever comments would be input here as well. Now, the next step for this is step 2. So green means it's complete and it was successfully approved.
And my apologies, Rodney, just
Yes.
very quickly, I apologize because I do have Angela's team's notes that we'll be putting in there. I know that because when they see full eligibility, I have all the notes that go in there. So that's one of the things that'll be part of the maintenance.
Okay, excellent. So we'll click step 2, the commitment documents. So there are just a couple of items here that need to be updated. Now, you notice that this upload resolution of support for the project from the governing body, that's already populated from last year, from 2021. But we have a new question here for 2022 is the project located within the right-of-way that's owned or controlled by municipality? So you will be required to answer this question. If the answer is no, then you'll need to upload a document that says that you do have approval from that municipality to do the work in that right of way. And once you've completed this, you'll click this request review button, and that will forward this information on to the review team so they can look at what you provided. They will then approve it or deny it. And if it's approved, then you will go on to the next step in the process, which is the completeness step, which is step 3. So once step 3 is completed, then you'll be able to submit whenever March 11th rolls around and the open period begins. Then this submit button will become active and you can submit during that period. Until then, it will be yellow or inactive. Okay. Great. So let's, the next item I want to talk about is we're going to go through the entire process of creating a new MCP, but I want to do that using the training login. So I'm going to log out of the Cooper City account, and I'm going to switch to our training account at the bottom. And password and log in. Okay, so what you see here is that we have no MCPs currently for 2022 for the training account. So we want to create a brand new MCP from the beginning. So we'll click the create a new MCP and we'll give a project name. So this project is a just a kind of a dummy project where we're, making sure we want to enter the information in, and it's really just for demonstration purposes only. So the project work type in this case will be widen existing roadway or bridge. Now this is this selection list. Todd had shown this slide in the earlier session where these are the 3 options that we now have for project work type. Last year, this list was different, but this is what we're doing under the new guidance. So our particular project type is widen existing roadway or bridge. And the other option is to select additional transportation related improvements. So these might be improvements that are related to this that you'll need to do as part of the overall project. And we need to select those as well. So we'll say bicycle lanes, sidewalks, and street lighting. Provide a brief description of the project. Now, Todd mentioned that this is an area where you need to fill in as much as you can in terms of just an overview of the project so that it can be reviewed in depth. There are other options for uploading scope of work, et cetera, so that will come into play as well. But this is a good initial step so that when this goes to Broward County Legal and they're looking at the description of this as a pre-screen for the project, you'll have as much information as you need in there to get your project approved. Okay, so sorry, lots of things open here. All right, does the project have defined start and end points? The answer is yes. And it goes from Washington Street to South 56th Avenue to South Park Road. Excellent. And the phases requesting surtax funding are design and construction. We'll put myself as the contact and my phone number and my email. Okay, so that's everything. We filled out all the general project information. So if we didn't have everything initially and we needed to go back and kind of reference, but we need to close out of the system, we can save a draft here. So if I save the draft, it will tell me the MCP application preliminary eligibility data has been successfully saved. That's great. So I'll go back here to our main screen, and you'll notice once I do that, we are now at the very beginning of this new project that we have for 2022. We haven't submitted it for review for any of the steps. So that's why our step 1, it still requires that you submit that review button. So in order to do that, we'll go back into this step and click the request review button. All right, so this sends an email to the review team, and they will then take a look at the information that you provided. And this is when you'll receive an email back whenever it's completed. And remember, it's to the person that was in the contact information. And what you'll notice, we'll go ahead and close this, is that this is now grayed out. And this is where it says review in progress. This, we cannot access this at this time. It says that it's review is in progress, right? So it lets you know through the tooltip what's happening for this step. All right. So the review happens, everything goes as planned, and what we do is we want to come back into this. So let me just do the review on the back end here, and we'll refresh this page. Okay, so the review has now been complete. You've received your email, and now you have a successful approval for your step 1. So that's great. So what you can do is you can always click on this and come back into this screen and see what the eligibility results are. And so this could be very comprehensive. I've just put something in here for demonstration purposes, but you will see what the result is back from Broward County Legal, in this case, from the review team in general. All right, so our next step is to click to input step 2 commitment documents. Okay, so this is what we looked at earlier. So for demonstration project here. We're going to say no, that the project located within a right-of-way that is owned or controlled by the municipality? No is the answer. So we want to upload the approval letter from the owner or controlling entity of the right-of-way in which the project is proposed. Okay, so we do have that document. And that is under our right-of-way approval letter. So this can be any document for upload, okay? So it can be a PDF, a Word document, a zip file, whatever you need to upload to get the data into the system. We'll take any of those data formats. Now, we do generally have a size limit of about 30 megs. So try to keep the file size as small as possible, but we do realize that some of these documents can be very large. So, and we understand, and we're trying to make allowances for those as well. So I will just click to open this file. And so here is our file that we're going to upload. And the second question in terms of project commitment is upload the resolution of support from the governing body. So again, we'll browse for that. And our resolution of support is here. Okay, great. So again, we can save a draft. And so if we need to go back out and come back in, we can do that. But I think we're ready to request a review, so we'll do that. Okay. So the MCP application has successfully submitted for commitment verification review. So that's great. That's what we wanted. And you can see that our step 2 is now grayed out here. And so that the review is in process. And while the review is in process, we kind of wait for the results, and then we'll move on to the next step. So I'm going to perform the review and refresh the page. And now our commitment has been approved, and we're ready to move on to step 3 of the review process. Okay, so we defined up front that we had 2 phases that we wanted to complete for surtax funding. And so we have a design and construction phase, but we haven't entered anything in for those as of yet. So we'll go to edit the design first. Okay. So our project cost, cost of the project phase is going to be 1.5 million. And we have an independent cost estimate for that as well. So we look for our independent cost estimate in a spreadsheet. That's fine. Provide amount of surtax funding requested, and that is going to be 1 million. Will non-surtax funds be used to complete the project? And the answer is yes. So when we select that option, we get additional information that we need to complete. The first question is provide the amount of non-surtax funding used. And in this case, it's 500,000. And we will be using it for all of our additional data elements, project transportation elements. So you notice that this list mimics the items that we selected on the initial review. So we had the list of additional transportation related elements of the project, and we only selected these 3. So what basically the review process will then carry that forward throughout and make sure that whatever we're presenting to you is in alignment with the responses that you've given earlier in the process. So the next item is to identify the source of the non-surtax funds. And that would be, in this case, in our example, is Broward County. Upload documentation of the commitment by the provider of the funds. So again, that's another upload. And this would be our non-surtax commitment document. Okay, great. So we have our cost and funding sources completed here. Now our next section is the implementation plan. So the first element of that is to upload the scope of work. And we'll go to our design scope of work, submit that. The number of months needed to complete this phase of the project is 12. And we expect this to start in 2023. All right, so another question here is, will a consultant be used to complete the project phase? In this case, the answer is yes. Has a consultant already been selected? And the answer in this case is also yes. So if we have that option selected, then we'll need to upload documentation for the method used to acquire the consultant and the consultant availability and qualifications. So again, we'll upload those documents. And the second one is the qualifications. All right. All right, great. So that is our design phase, all the elements that we want to submit and that are required for eligibility. So we'll hit the request review. Okay, great. So we come back out to our list of phases, and we now have our design phase beginning in 2023 for 12 months. And our surtax funding request was 1 million. And we noticed that it's pending. So we requested the review and now it's pending. So our next element is the construction element. And we'll go in and edit that. All right, so for this particular phase, we're at 1.56 million for the total cost of the phase. For the independent cost estimate, we do have that. So that's our construction independent cost estimate here. Now, in this case, we are actually going to be requesting the full amount from surtax funding. And will non-surtax fund be used to complete the project? Then the answer would be no. And then we're on to the implementation plan, where we again will need the scope of work for this phase. We'll need the number of months to complete, which is 24. And this will begin in 2024. Will a consultant be used to complete the project phase? In this case, the answer is no. And we need to upload our in-house staff allocation plan and the in-house staff qualifications. So let's do that. So our, for construction, our in-house staff allocation and our in-house staff qualifications. Oh, I'm sorry, allocation plan. I did the same twice here. Let's do that correctly. Okay, great. All right. So depending on if we roll back to where we started in step one of this process, where we itemized our list of transportation related improvements that will be happening in coordination with this project, then we get a list of additional eligibility documentation that is required based on those selections. So in this case, relative to the street lighting that was named in the project, we have a couple of files that need to be uploaded relative to that. So number one is upload the lighting justification report, and then upload a statement that lighting is not decorative. Okay, great. So we have everything in place for our submission for review. So we click the request review. And great. So both of those are now pending. And we have this information that we can always refer to and go back. So we'll go back here. And you'll see that this is now in review as well. So it has the gray. So it's tracking all of these requests that are being made and preparing the steps back and forth. So you know where every project will stand. So we have one project here, but you could have many. And just by a quick perusal of some of these color codes, you can see where you need to enter data, which is being reviewed, and what has been complete. So our next step is to finalize this. So we need to finalize both those phases in review. So I'm going to go perform the review process here. And refresh this page. All right, great. So now we have all 3 of our phases in green, which means they've all been approved. And what I've done is I've kind of tweaked the system here so that we can see where once you're ready with all 3 of the steps, that the submit button now becomes available for you to submit to the county for for ranking and further evaluation of the project. So this won't be active when we start and roll this out in a couple of weeks, but it will begin to be active on March 11th when the open period begins. So assuming that the open period is going on, and this is just a demonstration, as we know, we can hit the submit button, and then you're asked the project name is here, and it says, by clicking agree and submit, you agree the information is provided in this application is complete and correct to the best of your knowledge, and that you're authorized to make this submission. So if you click this and you click agree and submit, then it's been successfully submitted. And now your submit button is in green, and it's been submitted for funding consideration. So basically all of your buttons are green now, and that means that you have a full submission for this particular project. And it will be in the hands of then the review team in Broward County and Broward MPO to review and rank that project.
So a slight deviation, Rodney, just a point of clarity, it's not submittal for recommendation for funding for ranking. So at this point, when you submit, it means that it's moved to the ranking process only, not the recommendation for funding.
Right. Okay. Yes.
Yep. Sorry, I just want to make sure that was clear. Okay, good. Well,
Yeah.
Thank you, Rodney.
Sure.
And then what we'd like to do is, because we'll leave Rodney on here, and then let me share my screen. And we will take some questions at this point. So get back to my screen. Oh, yes. All right, Manny, a little help because let's see. I think you stopped sharing, Rodney, and then that allows me to share.
Okay.
Okay, and then let me do this. That. Hit share. Hit this. There we go. Okay, so you should see my question and answer screen. Awesome. All right, so we've got a screen. Oh, okay, no questions yet. Okay, so again, we want to hear your Q&A. So this is opened up for that. And Rodney, I think, said it best. Is like I said, we're in the process of transporting all of your data over there. Again, translating it where we can. As part of the one-on-ones, we will definitely work through any questions that you have. I know we've had a few questions already about basically going through the previous applications. We are more than happy to do it. And we've got our first Q&A. So it says, please confirm timelines. Can step 1, 2, 3 be completed once the portal comes out of maintenance mode? So yes, all of those steps can be. And the important part to note is all of these steps can be done any time of year. So if you're starting to move a project forward and it's October and you want to do step 1, you want to say, hey, we've got an idea here. We want to make sure that it's eligible. You can actually submit it at that time. The only thing that you can't do is the submittal. So all the steps can be completed prior to the open period. Like I said, I believe Rodney and I feel pretty confident. Now again, because we have most people are setting up their one-on-ones to get their password, but within the next week or two, once we at least have those that have been involved, the passwords available, we'll have this thing ready to go, and then, like I said, work with you as you need to get your projects going. All right. Any other questions? Use some time here. Who are we contacting to set up the one-on-ones? So that is part of what we went over before. I'm going to bring these slides back a bit here. So within the website, you go to mymcps.org and you will see a help screen here of how can we help? And you can select one-on-one meeting. It goes to Maria, who's our scheduler, and she makes sure that you are all set up. So you'll do that through the website. Okay. Next question. Has there been any discussion with upcoming cycles to fund unfunded projects in cycle 1? Upcoming cycles to fund unfunded projects. Well, yeah, so we, underfunded projects in 1. So yeah, so that's what we brought up at the beginning of the first session is ultimately it's cycle 1 is the priority. They're the most important element of it. And so we work with Broward County. Gretchen gives us the request of which ones to look at. And we do a readiness checklist with you. So we go through a process, we ask for documents. So as far as funding other new MCPs, I wouldn't anticipate there being money available, but again, that's not our call, that's the county. So if we get the report that they want to look at the readiness of new MCPs, we are certainly on it and happy to do that. Okay, other
Hey,
questions?
Todd, I just wanted to clarify. I think the question is for projects that are cycle 1 projects that have already received their preliminary approval, if there's a gap between what they asked for and what is actually needed in order to make that project happen, is there a future cycle that will address that gap?
Underfunded. Now I understand. Okay, yeah, that was part of the second clarity. Got it. Got it. Yeah, so there is, so part of that mag that I had showed you, there is a project contingency pot of money that they have available. And Brian, remind me the requirements of that, or is that still being laid out by the county? I know that the short of it is the county has a separate pot of money to help with that due to inflation and other elements. Are there, I don't remember if there was written requirements if it had to be 10% or certain percentage.
I think they're still trying to identify what the policy will be, but that amount of money is to be spread across all 29 participants in any given year. So if you're off in order of magnitude of what the actual cost is, then no, that project will not move forward. But if you're a little bit off, or if the actual, when you bid the project and the bids all come in higher, a little higher, there is some availability for you.
Thank you, Brian.
Mhm.
Other questions?
Todd, I have a question if no one else has questions. Just wanted to have anybody who has any recommendations or ideas for the website to throw it up on our chat for us to look at. I know I mentioned that you can do that at any time, but if you want to leave anything for us, I'd be happy to get on that right away.
Yes, absolutely. And that you can also do on the how we can help. If you just have a comment, put that in there. And I will say thank you, everyone. And thank you, Alicia, because you'll probably see that question come up again and again when we do the registrations. And folks were very good about giving us the information of how we can improve it. Like I said, that was somebody that had identified that the Outlook opportunity wasn't there. And we're able to identify that quickly and get it uploaded. All right, so we'll see if there's any other stragglers. I'll do a quick overview of what the next items are. So obviously we're encouraging you to visit the website. We are absolutely looking for you to register for your one-on-one meetings with the liaison team. So again, we can help you in multiple ways when it comes to looking at your current new MCP applications that you did prior, your cycle 1 projects, getting ready for the next cycle. That's what we're going to be able to meet with you. And again, we'll meet with you as many times as we need. We can do it virtually. We can do it in person. Obviously, most of them have turned virtual over the last couple of weeks because of COVID, but we're happy to do that. And then in February, we're going to have some feedback surveys that we want to work with you because we're hoping that, again, we'd like to get all of those one-on-ones at least scheduled by January 28th. We'll give some feedback surveys coming out in February related to any adjustments that we need to make. And then Probably in March, we're going to be having an additional training session. Because after we do the one-on-ones, we want to make sure that everybody's very clear about what's in the database, what's available, but also then submitting new projects. So we'll be doing another session. Rodney and Kat will be doing that, so that way you can make sure that to have your information. But if we need to do that sooner based on feedback that we get from you all, we can certainly do that in February. Now, again, I'll remind you that the cycle one is really where you want to put your attention, though, because until those are done, there will likely be no funding for the new MCP. So getting that database together is great, but let's make sure that we're getting the cycle one so we can get those moving forward as quickly as possible. So if you're not in or you don't get anything submitted this cycle, we had several that didn't submit in 2021 because they were focusing on cycle one. Don't worry, you're not missing out on anything at this point. So Brian, is there anything else that you would add?
No, we appreciate you coming today, and we remain available to assist you in any way. A difference between last year and this year is that we actually put in the scope to provide technical assistance to any community that needs it. And the county is paying us to do this. So we want to do the best job that we can. So, you know, feel free, always give us a call, always leave a message, because if you don't leave a message, it tells me that you were calling me to tell me how adorable my puppy is. And that it was just a social call. So always leave a message so we will get back with you. And our steadfast rule is try to get a turnaround in 24 hours. So thank you all for participating today. And we appreciate any feedback that you have for us. Have a great day, everyone.